Good to go.
Welcome to the webinar. The webinar will begin in 5 minutes. Good afternoon. The webinar will begin in 3 minutes.
They're not going to do it with video. So it's like, there's so much laser back on.
The webinar will begin in 1 minute. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the TFEA COVID-19 Task Force webinar series. Today, our webinar is Keeping Staff Engaged While Working Remotely. All attendees are muted. If you want to ask a question, there's a question box either at the bottom, a Q&A box either at the bottom or the top of your screen, as well as there is a chat box if you want to put something in the chat box. We'll be monitoring those as we go forward. I would like to introduce our panelists for today. We have two wonderful people that I've worked with on a lot of other opportunities, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say as well. Our first speaker today is going to be Kate Horan, who holds a bachelor's degree in English from the State University of New York at Stony Brook, where she graduated summa cum laude and earned her master's in library science at St. John's University in Queens, New York. She has 28 years experience in library service and has been with the City of McAllen since 2006. She became the library director of the award-winning McAllen Library in 2012 and oversees operations of 3 dynamic locations. She also is the head librarian for Hidalgo County. Our second speaker will be Yahida Flores. Yahida has more than 15 years in experience in public assembly facility management, strategic event planning, and event marketing, and can be regarded as a driving force behind some of the Rio Grande Valley's largest events and promotion initiatives. Through the years, Yahida has fostered partnerships with promoters, city leaders, and the community to see events developed from initial planning stages to realization. She has spearheaded the grand opening of the Bert Ogden Arena in her role as Director of Booking and Marketing for Bert Ogden Arena and HEB Park. She previously spent 9 years working for the City of McAllen for the Convention Facilities Department, and which included the McAllen Convention Center, McAllen Performing Arts Center, and the old McAllen Civic Center Auditorium. In this role, she has the booking efforts and the new Performing Arts Center in its open season. Beginning in 2014, Yahida has served as adjunct professor for the College of Business Administration, Marketing Development, where she uses her expansive network to empower and educate marketing students at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley in Edinburgh. She holds a BBA and a master's degree from the University of Texas, Pan American in Business Administration. Is a 2018 graduate of the prestigious Venue Management School Professional Education Program, and she's a member of numerous professional organizations, including the International Association of Venue Managers, Meeting Planners, International Entertainment Buyers Association, International Festivals and Event Association, and a great part of Texas Festival and Event Association. Thank you, ladies, for joining us, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Kate?
Well, first of all, Kate, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here with my amazing colleague, Yahida, to talk about our experience with telecommuting. So at the library closed its doors on March the 20th. And so we did have some people working from home. We did it in 3 phases. So we have 99 employees total, and we had these 3 phases. The first one was for 12 people, the second one was 13, and the third was 14 for a total of 39. But before we got to that point, we just went over some very basic questions, which I'm sharing with you here. Who can work from home? So do you want them to be full-time or part-time? Some staff were not eligible. The shelvers here at the library could not shelve from home, nor could custodial staff clean the building from home. So, so there was some pretty obvious screening process that we went through. And those who stayed behind stayed very busy answering the phones, doing curbside delivery, conducting inventory, doing repainting and small repair jobs and so forth, as well as steam cleaning, just about anything that could be steam cleaned. So who stays behind? For us, it was mainly the part-timers and the custodial crew and myself. I didn't even telecommute even one day, partly because I really like my office and I like my desk setup and my 2 monitors, and partly because I felt that it was necessary for staff who were in the building to see that I was there supporting them. So the city of McAllen did have some required forms to fill out. For instance, staff had to fill out a form requesting VPN access so that they could get to their desktops from home, and also to get their calls through an app called Jabber. Then there was also a form to fill out if they were conducting any kind of assignment or business that addressed or mitigated COVID-19. So they would keep track on that form. And then there were 2 forms, which I'm going to show you in just a moment on our next slide. A crucial question is, do they have the necessary technology and equipment? So initially, they were asked, did they have internet at home, and did they have a computer that was open to them? Some people said, yes, I'm going to use my device, and that didn't work out so well. So the most success came from people who had high-speed internet at home and had either a desktop computer that they could access or a good-sized laptop. The smaller devices were not successful. They were frustrated, and they pretty much came back within a few weeks. Again, is the home environment conducive to productivity? You know, what is going on at home? Do they have a space like an office or a place where they could be, you know, have quiet and be productive? Or, you know, are there, a lot of parents were working from home and their children were home because the schools were closed. So how, you know, how are they going to handle that? And staff handled it, I know, in a variety of ways, either because their spouse was also at home with them, so they kind of traded off, or they actually kept with their babysitter or had a family member who could babysit their children while they were working from home. A crucial thing too is how will you track attendance and how will you measure accountability? So for me, I had 8 people who were my direct reports, who would contact me in the morning with a text message. That was my preference, to do the text message instead of a phone call, because I did have so many people who were trying to contact me. And I answered every one of the texts either with a thumbs up emoji, or I had something kind of pre-planned, like a little GIF or something like "have a nice day," just to kind of start their day off well. And then how will you measure accountability? Well, again, I'll share that in the next slide, but I did set up kind of what I call my bookend philosophy. So you have something to start with and then something to end with. And again, talking about telecommute by phases, you know, I would highly recommend, if people are considering telecommuting for their staff, that they do it in phases, because you really do feel the impact right away, and you want to make sure that everyone, you know, can work from home properly, that there's good contact, good communication going, and that you don't have too many people actually leaving your building if you do still need people in the building. Next slide, please. So this is what I was just talking about, my bookend philosophy. At the beginning of the week, they would give me a schedule of what they proposed to accomplish. And then at the end of the week, there was a form that was actually a City of McAllen form, requiring them to log onto this paper, what did they actually accomplish. And they didn't have to give it in to anybody. I mean, we didn't have to submit it to a city department. But but we did hold on to those and did compare both of them. So I'll show you what those look like if we can go to the next slide. So this is someone's proposed schedule, and you can see that it's mapped out from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 p.m., which is their normal scheduled time to work. Everything from checking email to monitoring social media pages. There's STBF, which is our South Texas Book Festival, programming ideas, an application for an award. So there's something that this person has carefully thought out what their week is going to look like, just as if they were in the office. So that's the first one. And then next slide. So this next slide just gives you a snippet of what this city form looks like. So this is for an employee who would contact me, so my direct report, and then this shows what she did. So that's what she proposed on the former screen, and then this one is telling me, yes, this is what I accomplished, and then the employee would sign off on it, and I would also sign off on it. And that was a really good way of gauging accountability and productivity, so I could compare both of them. So next screen. So here are some work from home possibilities. These were kind of no-brainers. They worked really well. Anything that had to do with administrative paperwork could be done from home. Zoom meetings, at the very beginning, I was like, how do I even do Zoom? Now I'm kind of like a Zoom expert, as we probably all are at this point. That's pretty much how we're meeting these days. Learning new applications. So I heard a lot from staff who said, you know, it felt like I was back in school because I had finally had an opportunity to learn this thing that I've been putting off for, you know, a year. Or I finally got to take some webinars or some trainings in this area of cataloging that I always wanted to do and I just could never find the time. So this was perfect. So they learned things like Adobe Illustrator, Creative Cloud, and Excel. I already mentioned about monitoring social media. McAllen Public Library has various platforms. So we have 4 different Facebook pages. We have our main page. We have one for adults and teens and children. And then we also have Instagram, and we have Twitter, and we have, you know, Pinterest, and we have a bunch of different platforms and they're very robust, and it's a way that we maintain our relationships. So it was very important during this unprecedented time that we make sure that we are staying in contact all the time with our patrons. And we also developed virtual programs. I'll just skip down for a second. And right before we closed, actually, I called staff together and I said, let's all take a look at the programs that we currently have in person and see if we can make them virtual. And it has just been such a great success. We've stayed in contact with our patrons. We develop programming for children, so teens and adults, live story times that have been tremendously popular, as well as, you know, some public service type things like initially there was a lot of scamming going on by telephone to seniors, so we were able to put together a little video warning people about that. So we had something pretty much every single day, multiple times per day, and continue to do that. We also did things like because so many things are hosted in the cloud now, they're not, you know, resident on the server. We were able to do things like updates in the catalog, fixing different bibliographic records, and also maintaining the featured books of the month, which is kind of like a constantly refreshing stream of titles that goes across our catalog. Also to, as I kind of mentioned earlier about, you know, finally getting the time to find some training about things that you're interested in. So we had staff do some deep diving into our online systems. You know, these are things that we subscribe to. And so to get the most, you know, bang for our buck, it's good to go in and learn, you know, any new features, or they all have some kind of a learning campus, a virtual learning campus. And then again, the webinars and online trainings. The library world is a universe of webinars and online trainings. So everyone kind of established like what will be good for them to view so that they can enrich their experience or to learn a new skill. Next slide, please. So, okay, so I can't get connected. And these are the challenges that you face when you're using technology. Technology is wonderful, it's amazing, except when it doesn't work and then it stinks. So kind of expect that you're going to be dealing with glitches and delays and time lags. I would hear from people almost every single day. I was trying to clock in, but it wouldn't let me. Probably because everybody is trying to clock in, at the same time using the virtual system. People got into, delays in the Wi-Fi, or the Wi-Fi was cutting in and out. If you've been on Zoom calls, which I'm sure you all have, you know that it can take time for everyone to patch in. So if you have a 2 o'clock meeting, chances are your meeting will not actually get started until 2:15 or 2:20. Just due to everyone, trying to get in and then calling, I'm in the waiting room, or I can't log in, it's asking for some other ID and so forth. So you just have to be very patient. We found with our using our Jabber system that there were a lot of dropped calls. So that was also kind of a frustration for a lot of staff. Also, there's just varying degrees of facility with apps and software. Some people are comfortable in, the world of technology, and others, just, barely use, Facebook. So there's a learning curve that you can expect from people who have less facility, and you have to offer not only training, but just lots of encouragement to hang in there, and you're going to get the hang of this. Again, I'll mention, working on a notebook or a laptop versus working on a desktop with 2 monitors. I prefer the latter rather than the former, even though if forced to, I will work on my notebook. But it's even worse. There were some staff who were trying to do things by, on their oversized phone, or on a small, like a mini iPad, and that just didn't work out. And then there are some things that are kind of like this, the soft hardships or challenges. And one of them was just, quite frankly, it was loneliness. So you have to make sure that you're going to prepare yourself to have a lot more contact, not less, but more, because people are, we want to be around each other. We like working with each other. We like talking with each other. And I think that staff expressed surprise that it was much more challenging, and that loneliness was a factor that they hadn't really expected, but that was something that they had to deal with. So we had a lot of conversations about that. And then, of course, along with that, there could be feelings of anxiety, or feelings of nervousness, or even depression, where there's a lack of focus. So it's also important, again, to connect with people who are telecommuting, because, if you hear a lot of that, then, you may want to encourage them to reach out to somebody for some help, because they might be getting into a bad situation, or they may even want to, come back, which was fine. Okay, next slide. So again, communication is really key. I say this about everything in the universe, but especially so with telecommuting. So I tried to be as transparent as possible, making sure that if there were any changes to the Open Texas checklist for museums and libraries, that everyone was aware. I shared any memorandum that came from our city manager or HR or whatever the city had put out. And by saying sharing, I not only sent it to them, but would even gather people together and go through it laboriously, line by line, to make sure that people really understood what the city manager wanted to convey, especially important when it came to things like emergency sick leave, paid leave, and FMLA. Again, count on having more contact with your direct reports. For soup to nuts, they just need a lot of encouragement. And also that winding up when you're coming back from telecommuting can be a relief, but it can also be very stressful. Especially, I can share this, as we were reopening, we had a short window to reopen. So it was, I have an incredible staff. So I told them, I shared my reopening action plan with them, as well as having shared it with our city management team. And they were all hands on deck, getting this place open. And that included, safety measures in place, making sure there was adequate PPE and disinfecting, cleaning materials, ensuring social distancing, which we did by taking out a lot of furniture so that it was easy to maintain social distancing. We put the floor vinyls down to establish social distancing as well, and put sneeze guards up on all of our service desks. So it was a lot accomplished in a very short time, but again, I think that I credit the staff for being so amazing, but also because they understood what the action plan was for reopening, and they felt included and they had buy-in. So it was easy for them to follow through with their assignments. And with that, I will turn it over back to Kay and see if anybody has any questions at this point.
No questions yet, Kate.
Okay.
Thank you, Kate. This is Yahaira Flores. I oversee the McAllen Convention Center and the McAllen Performing Arts Center. My situation in terms of keeping in employees engaged and motivated has been very challenging, and I kind of wanted to go over some of those challenges that I've had. I had a unique situation where I was on vacation in early March out of the country, and when I came back is when COVID really took off here in the US, and they started banning different countries and whatnot. So I went into a self-quarantine before anybody else did, before anybody else in the city and any of the employees. So the first thing that I tried to do was to figure out what platform to communicate with my employees, and Zoom was not in my daily language, as it probably wasn't in a lot of yours. There was GoToMeetings, there was Zoom meetings, there was Microsoft Teams, and a whole bunch of other things. And I didn't know what the best platform was to be able to have those virtual but still face-to-face meetings. And I think I got it right. I ended up getting Zoom and making sure that I was still able to connect with everybody that was working really, really hard here at our facilities. We still had events happening. We still had concerts happening, and slowly things started to cancel. And then, came March 15th, we canceled all of our events, and staff had a lot of questions. And there were more questions than there were answers. So the first thing that I'd have to say is to place a priority on video meetings. The reason why is because it makes our conversations more personal. When you have employees or you yourself are working from home, it forces you to get up and get ready versus just rolling out of bed and logging on. It forces you to look sharp, and when you look sharp, you feel sharp. And it gives you also the ability to observe your employees through not only verbal communication, but through nonverbal communication as well. So I found that video is still really, really important to keep with the normalcy of everything that's happening in these times. I have weekly meetings with staff one-on-one, but I really focus on our war meetings. And those are our weekly action reviews. We have them first thing Monday morning. This is the opportunity for all of the managers to hear what everybody else is doing and to allow us to share our progress as a team. It sets everybody's priorities. It allows us to just really have that time with each other that I feel like Kate said, Kay said, sorry, we're very lonely in this world of shelter in place and, you know, working from home, and you do want to have that human interaction. It's normal to want to feel that human interaction and to know what everybody else is doing. So these war meetings really give us the opportunity to figure out what the whole landscape looks like and not just one specific aspect of how the organization is running. And then in terms of meetings, the end of day check-ins are extremely important because it gives that sense of accountability. When you're working from home, you really have to be so disciplined to make sure that you get everything right. And some of us have that self-discipline and some of us don't have that self-discipline. And you know, get distracted or have a lot of distractions at home. We have different living situations. And so that end of day check-in provides that sense of accountability. When I first started working from home, I would say I would ask for this daily. But then I got to a point where I realized it was counterproductive for staff because they were working towards creating the checklist instead of working towards the things that they had to do. So then we switched it to weekly, but it really just depends on what's good for that particular employee and for your organization and for the things that you're currently working on. Next slide. It's in the other direction, Jessica. So the next thing is being able to provide a platform for effective communication and recognizing that every individual's needs. Not every employee communicates in the same way. I have people that are very computer savvy, that love to be on video calls, and I have people that, you know, we have to dial the number so that they can actually be on the call with everybody else, and, you know, and really provide that instruction and the direction. Employees that love email, employees that love face-to-face, employees that love text messages. And so we really have to consider what everybody's personality is, you know, really look at those personality traits, and see, you know, if you're able to be able to effectively engage with that particular employee or that particular staff member. What motivates each employee, what challenges each employee is going to be different for everybody. And so if you're only trying to communicate in one way, you might be missing that effective communication. Sometimes you also have members of your team that tend to take over the conversation. And when you are in these war meetings and you have, you know, 15 people on a call, you'll have people that love to talk and take over. And then you have people that don't feel comfortable speaking in public, and they would rather have one-on-one time with you. And they would rather, you know, just not be seen or be heard. And really, when you have large meetings, it's making sure that you're able to give time to everybody accordingly. So what communication platform works for each employee? Is it through text message? Is it through email? Is it, if it is face-to-face, what else could you do to make sure that you're not, that you're supplementing that face-to-face? One of the challenges that we had when we went into a shelter in place here in this facility is that we run two facilities that are brick and mortar. We have people that are not able to shelter in place that have to come to the office every day. We had people that were able to come to the office, and then we also had people on FMLA. And so it was really challenging to manage the diverse situation that we were in, not only from a perspective of is everybody doing their job, but from a morale perspective. So we started seeing a drop in morale. The people that were coming to work every day didn't know what the people that were working from home were doing. They didn't understand, like, well, how come they get to work from home and we still have to come to the office? You know, we're all going through the same challenges. And so that we really had to work through, and we really had to figure out what worked for what, you know, how could we give that attention to everybody. And one of the things that we found out was to make sure that we were engaging with our on-site and with our off-site, and that we made employees feel included. We worked on an employee newsletter where we could highlight what every department was doing and what every employee was doing, where we could highlight employee milestones, and we can, you know, just work on communicating the message to everybody in the way that they needed to hear it. The next thing that, next slide. The next thing that we did was, you know, we brainstormed with staff. How can we engage all of our employees? You know, tell me what the answers are. So we threw a brainstorming board together, and, you know, one day we had one of our managers that was working from home come bring food to the staff that was working here at the office. And they felt very appreciated, and they felt very included, and it felt like we were part of one team again. So that was something that was really, really important. You know, just taking that into consideration. The next thing is, in order to be successful, is to clarify goals. What are remote employees expected to do when they're working from home? What are those expectations? Are the expectations clear? Are they measurable? What are normal working hours? Are they still expected to be working from 8 to 5? Is there a flexibility with working hours? Just, you know, if some people were used to working events and their schedules were different. They used to work, you know, until midnight. So being able to talk to staff and seeing what the flexibility is as long as the work gets done, or are they expected to clock in at 8 o'clock every morning? Really just looking towards all of that. We have salary employees, and then we had non-salaried employees. So how do you treat those employees in terms of the amount of hours that they're working and the times that they're working? Setting expectations for the organization as a team, as well as each team member, was something that was really important. And to be able to let the team know, here are the expectations during this time. Here is what the facility as a whole is expected to do. And here is how your role is crucial to the organization. I think that right now, we don't have all of the answers. And so it's important to let the team members know why their particular role is so important. It helps with morale. And again, we didn't get it right in the beginning, and we're still working every day towards that employee morale and towards trying to keep employees as engaged as possible. Giving employees continual access to the organizational performance, to project updates. How are we doing? What events have canceled? What new events are we bringing in? You know, what are we doing in the interim to keep the momentum going from a community perspective? Here in this facility, we did virtual concerts. We did a lot of virtual events, and being able to get all of our staff behind the virtual events, whether it was an engineer or cleaning crew, you know, not just the event planners or the marketing team, and continuously asking for that feedback. Are we doing this right? Are we lacking in something? Could we be doing something different to be able to engage better with employees? And I was really surprised to hear a lot of feedback from staff. Well, you know, we didn't do an employee of the month for the month of April. We think that's very important. Or, you know, could we be repurposing the facility for, you know, this use? A lot of that feedback was very important in not only asking staff what they wanted, but to see what they didn't want as well. One of the ideas that we threw out was, you know, a virtual happy hour after hours. And to my surprise, nobody really wanted to participate in a virtual happy hour, but we threw it out there and we asked them, do you want this? And, and staff had a voice and they said no. Next slide. So include employees in the direction of the organization, I think is very important. Before we sheltered in place, we had a conversation with employees and let them know, here's the current situation. Here is where we are. We don't have all of the answers. Things are still unfolding and things are continuing to unfold, but letting them know what you know in real time makes employees feel engaged and that they're part of the team and that there isn't any information that we're withholding. Everybody throughout COVID has been scared at some point because we don't have the answers. And there are a lot of individual cases where we don't know what everybody's situation is at home. And so, sensitivities and just making sure that we were able to communicate, we're here, we care, here's what we know. We don't have all of the answers, but as soon as we get more information, we'll share that with you. And, and keeping the open dialogue has really been able to help us a lot. And then on top of that, make employees part of the conversation. Some of you on the call might know Joe Vera and some of you might not, but those of you that do have probably heard him say, if they write it, they'll underwrite it. And basically what I take from that is have them, have staff be part of the plan. Don't give them a plan and say, here's what we're gonna follow. Have them be part of a plan. And so when it came time to put together our reopening protocols, what we did here at the convention center was we sent out a mass email to all staff, and staff that didn't have emails, we made sure that we printed the information to them and said, we're going to be working on reopening protocols, and we invite you to be part of this task force. I think for me, it would have been really easy to take the reopening protocols that I had seen from various industries, venues and whatnot, and put something together, but it was very special to have our staff work on this. And what we did from there is that we divided this into 3 different sections, one was the sanitation protocols, another one was employee training and responsibilities, and then the other one was the event service perspective, which included the ingress and egress and how we were going to manage each individual room that we had. And they went through all of the research and they understood it, and then they put together what was important to our facilities. And now we have a beautiful document. It's growing every day. It's probably about 50 pages right now, but every single one of our team members worked on it, from people that were cleaning to our marketing team to our event services team, and they all have a part of it, and it gives them a sense of belonging. And so with just like this, we're looking at other opportunities where we can get our team members engaged in the conversation. And so we were very surprised with the feedback that we got from staff, and I think it just helped with morale. They're part of what we're doing here. Next slide. The next thing is to continue to recognize great work. Remote employees have proven that their productivity sometimes rivals or exceeds that of their counterparts, people that are still, working from the office. It's important to continue to make their work highly visible, and that other members of the organization are aware of their valuable contributions. So calling out the big wins and empowering the rest of the team to also call out the big wins is important. We have 2 programs here that we work on continuously. The first one is something that we call our Rockstar cards. Now, any employee could give any other employee a Rockstar card if they catch them doing something right. And basically the Rockstar card is being able to recognize employees for something that they did that exemplifies their commitment to teamwork or respect or excellence or innovation or their passion to serve. And so if you see something doing something, if you see somebody doing something right, let us know so that we can recognize them. We send this email out to all of our staff members. It's nice to be recognized for the things that you do. Our staff members feel very nice about it. And the next thing is our employee of the month that we continue to do. Now, we didn't do an employee of the month in April. That was when we were in the middle of, sheltering in place and, trying to figure out what the direction of the organization was. And it was our fault and it was our bad. And, some employees said, hey, we missed that. We want to make sure that we're being recognized. Our Employee of the Month program is similar to the Rockstar card, where we ask all of our employees to nominate who they think is the most deserving person for that particular month. Yesterday, we did the Employee of the Month certificate for the month of June, and the Employee of the Month was our box office manager, who has really taken this time to engage as much as he can with employees that are on site. He has brought employees food. He does these junk food Fridays, where during the lunch hour he'll bring in just junk food so people could enjoy themselves. He's constantly thinking of ideas to make sure that during this time the morale is not low, and he's done a great job. And you never know those leaders that you're going to find, and where you're going to find that leadership. So it's good to know that there is opportunity to be able to recognize and reward employees when they're doing a good job. And lastly, I'd like to say that just, finding reasons to celebrate really engages employees. During COVID, we've had 2 employees that have had babies. And so we did a diaper party where we just collected money so that we could donate diapers to employees, which, was something that they really, really appreciated. Celebrating employees' birthdays still, not forgetting to celebrate. I think that especially in the industry that we're in, we need to find those reasons to celebrate. We had a barbecue where our employees that were working remotely cooked for our employees that were working here at the facility on site. And it was just a really neat moment for everybody to take an hour and to thank that we still are employed, that we still have, that we're still able to see each other, that we still have a job. And continuing to find those reasons to celebrate, I think keeps us going. And so with that, I'd just like to conclude and say that remote work is here to stay. Whether it's all of us working remotely or some of us some of the time. According to the Global Workplace and Analytics study, a typical business saves $11,000 per person per year by leveraging remote work policies. Today, we had one of our first meetings. It was a boardroom meeting, and one of the attendees was not able to make it. So we Zoomed that particular person in. And I feel like that's where we're going to go now in the event industry and in the meeting industry. It is going to, we are going to get back to normal at some point. We are going to have face-to-face meetings, but we're going to leverage that technology a little bit more than we had in the past. We'll probably conference people in if they aren't able to travel. I find it super convenient, because if there's conferences that you can't make it, that FaceTime matters. It's very important to see people face to face. You're never going to be able to replicate that handshake, but being part of the conversation, if you're not able to be there in person, being able to see people's facial expressions and still learn is key. And I think that we're probably going to take advantage of that technology more than we had. I think that with remote employees, the right engagement and motivation can be highly productive. So let's make the most out of the conferencing tools that we have at hand. Let's provide a platform for effective communication, making sure that we clarify our goals, our expectations, that we recognize great work, and that we continuously make time to celebrate. So that's what I have. If anybody has any questions, I mean, I know that I didn't get it right in the beginning, and we're working through this. It's hard to keep that morale up. It's hard to keep people engaged, and we work on it every day.
At this time, we can have you write in your questions and we'll get answers for them. Does anybody have any questions they want ask?
I'll ask a quick question for either Kate or Yahida, and just curious if y'all found any new technologies. I know Zoom, of course, has been great for meetings. Any other technologies that you're using to kind of coordinate your staff efforts? At Sapphire, we've been using Trello to keep track of some communication and some project management type pieces. Any other ones that you guys have found?
I've used a few in the past. I haven't done them in the last 2 months with our remote employees. I've used Asana and I've used Basecamp. What I've found is that, again, different personnel, it works for some people, it keeps some people on track, and they're great for some of the staff members, and it just doesn't work. It's just another thing to learn for the rest of our staff members. So, you know, right now we're trying to stay afloat. I think that if you start the organizational culture that way, it's easy to transition into those base camps or asanas. And if you don't, it's hard to, you know, teach somebody another new thing that they have to learn.
Yeah.
You know, we also use Basecamp, and I agree 100%. Some people find it's just like a nuisance to have an extra step to their day. But it is very user-friendly. It's pretty instantaneous to learn how to use it because it's so easy. And it's just another place where everybody can park their, you know, their trackers or their paperwork. So it's all in one spot, and it is available from anywhere that you can, you know, get onto the web, including your phone.
Great.
We still don't have any questions, but we do have a comment from Andrew Snyder. He says, "Thank you for sharing."
Thanks, Andrew.
My pleasure.
Anyone else want to put a question up? Now's your time.
I'll just reiterate a couple of things that both of you touched on for us, because we actually are, we have 2 separate offices, one in Portland, Oregon, and one in Austin, Texas, but we have about 10 employees who work remotely all the time. That's just their year-round location is somewhere else in the country. But when we went to everyone working from home, kind of like what Kate said, we found we really needed to increase our communication. And similar to Yahida's war meetings, we enacted a brand new Monday morning all hands team meeting where the entire company comes together on a Zoom call and hears from the different teams and departments. And then bookending it, kind of like Kate mentioned, at the end of the week on Friday afternoons, we receive an email from our president that just kind of keeps us in tune with what has happened that week, either in the industry or, you know, we're still working through all sorts of various items for PPP loans and hearing what events have canceled and what clients need what. And so really reinforcing that idea of almost over communicating in this environment. And I totally agree with Yahida. If you can do the video calls, seeing the nonverbal communication with your employees is huge, because it's kept me really in tune with a few of my employees. I've got one in Minneapolis right now and one in LA. And it's been interesting to see, just even in this past week, how things like curfews are on top of quarantine are starting to take a toll on morale as well. So thank you both. I thought those, you both had some really great points about just keeping an eye on the emotional state of your employees as well.
And I'll also just throw in that the Zoom call, it was my preference, and that was by and large most of the calls that we had with our telecommuters. But also because I know a lot of those people were also doing online trainings and online webinars, there comes a point where you're just you have this kind of Zoom fatigue. And so I tried to take that into account to mix some regular phone calls in.
Thank you, Kate. I've had that same feeling. You just absolutely zoom out.
A little bit, yeah, glaze over.
Anybody have any?
Another question came in on the chat window. I don't know if you saw it, Kay, but I can ask it. Okay. This one's from Jay Downey, and he said, thank you also for the information. Do you find that you are missing the spontaneous office-related conversations and discussions or brainstormings, those sort of things that just pop up by being in the same space?
I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. FaceTime matters. It's hard to be able to replicate that through working remotely. And I think that we all see that when we go to conferences and we know one another, we see one another, we probably talk regularly, but we have those kind of spontaneous aha moments when you're collectively in a room and you're in the same wavelength with somebody and you're able to think of great things together and brainstorm. That same current and that same vibe isn't available from an online platform. So yes.
You do miss that energy. And there were a few times where I knew that was, their energy was really flagging. And so I started our regular Monday morning meetings with an icebreaker and just something really light and fun. And then went on with our regular meeting. So that helped.
One other thing I'll just sort of touch on related to that is I think as the leaders of our teams, it's kind of up to us to keep the morale up and going. And so, we're also humans. And so I think it's also nice to keep in mind having your leaders checking in on each other so that there's somebody there to keep you up and running as well. Because like you're saying, Kate, when you start to realize the energy is down, it's kind of on you to find those moments of icebreaker moments or find a way to sort of lift the morale of the team. And so I always kind of encourage the leadership within our team to do it with each other so we can have somebody helping to support us as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Remember, we do this once a week, and we will have another one next week. There might be a tiny time difference. I'll find that out tomorrow, but you'll get plenty notice. Please watch your emails for the notices, and if you think of anything that you would like to send to us to do a webinar on, please do so. Things are changing some as we move forward, and we need to stay up with the times and keep that information flowing.
Looked like we had a hand raised for a second there. Jay, did you have something you wanted to add? Let me go ahead if you want. I can. All right, your microphone, I think is, well, it's open from my end if you want to. There you go. You got something, Jay?
Yeah, I just, the governor issued new guidances yesterday, which I think puts large events over 500 people in local jurisdictions' hands to manage. So I just wanted to make that note. If you haven't looked, I think Kay sent out an email with a link to the governor's guidances. So I suggest if there's, whoever's on the call should take a look at those and see how it might pertain to your circumstances in your local jurisdiction. So I just wanted to make sure we shared that with those who have joined us.
Great point, Jay. I thought that was good, Kay, for you to share that with the group yesterday. And I think, everybody's kind of looking to see what that means for their event specifically. So seems like a promising move in the right direction for our industry.
I'd say so.
Okay. Thank you, Yahida and Kate, for a great session. We appreciate you taking the time away from your work to help us out. And we look forward to being where we can be together again soon.
Thanks, Kay.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.